Okay, better.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Hannah, it's great to meet you.
It's good to meet you too. I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Me too. So where are you located?
I am in San Luis Obispo area right now in California, like the Central Coast.
Okay, cool. Very cool. I hear the weather's weird. Like it's been a little cold and damp and kind of strange.
Yeah, a couple months ago, the house that I'm in right now, the whole entire like first floor actually flooded because of the rain.
Wow.
Um, because it's just so abnormal. It's like not prepared for that, and
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Yeah, I just went to Colorado and it was weird. Like there was constant storm lookout, all this hail damage, things they're not used to. So Mother Nature's having having a heyday with everybody.
Yeah,
For sure. Well, hey,
yeah.
it's great to meet you. And before we get into your work and your history and what makes you who you are, living through COVID the last 3 years has been quite a thing. And I'm curious how you survived it and how it's changed the way that you do things now in this 2023 post-pandemic era we're entering.
Huh, that's a good question. That's an interesting question. So for me, I actually launched my completely virtual business about 6 months before COVID started,
Okay.
before the lockdown started. So I was already like on the path to being at home all the time, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the actual lockdowns, like for staying home and that kind of thing, didn't really impact me um, either way, positively or negatively. Obviously, there was some inconvenience at times of like finding things at stores and that kind of stuff that impacted everybody. But for the most part, it actually kind of served me because everybody was kind of hauled up and everybody became more aware of all the things that I help people with.
Well,
You're like in lockdown and you see all your stuff come to the surface sometimes for
that
the first time.
that's the thing about it that's interesting is that in your line of work, everybody had to reevaluate their existence and what they wanted, whether it was relationships, love, and or otherwise. That had to be a big boom for you.
Yeah, it was definitely an influx in people who I think that kind of work had not been on the radar before then.
Yeah. So let's get to the essence of exactly what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade kids at career day. And one of them looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Ooh, that's rough. Let's see. How do I answer that?
A
This is like
PG
my
version
Achilles
for
heel
them.
sometimes. Right. This is my Achilles heel sometimes, is like making it concise and clear in a way that a third grader could understand. Okay, what do I do? I help people become happy in a way that the way we get taught how to grow up doesn't always support. I help people be who they really are.
What is it about every good book or love song or painting always has to do with love and humans they flail at it until they learn otherwise. What is that fatal flaw that human beings have that are brought to you and that are brought to a therapeutic surface to say this needs to change or we need to address this?
So, on a real esoteric level here, my thought on that is that we are all eternal in some way. We all have whatever you want to call it, soul, spirit, something like that, whatever you prescribe to. That, like, that part of us that does know the actual truth of how connected we are in this human limited form is in pain. We want to all feel that level of connection that we don't really know how to do in this human form. And we have to go through the struggles and growth of learning how to do that. And that is ultimately for our evolution on a soul level, but that's how I see it.
That's interesting. So, how did you get to this point? Talk to me a little bit about how you were born, where you were born and raised, and how these seeds were put into you. Because you're not just going into a job, you're actually giving a lot of yourself to help people find a true essence, which is a big deal.
Yeah. So I would say I had a rather unorthodox life, like kind of start to finish. I mean, it's not over yet, but from the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me get my cat out of my face here.
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, is that a Russian gray?
She's something like that. Yeah.
Okay, because I had cats. I'm a cat person. I had Reiki done on me years ago, and there was a lot of cats, and I just
Mm.
I bask in the sun like a cat, so they hear me sometimes and just come to my voice. So anyway, it
I
happens.
have four, so they'll be around.
I'm
They'll be
happy.
coming around.
I thought I saw that, and I was like, all right, here they come. So
Yep, yep, they're flocking. Yes.
Nice.
So, my parents split when I was really young. I was about 5 years old, and my mom was the one that left, actually, like left the household. So I was raised by a very emotionally unavailable father. So that really was kind of like the initial challenge that I experienced in my own life that put me on the path to wanting to heal that for myself. And then that, through a lot of other experiences, opened the door to me seeing that, oh, I'm onto something here. There's a lot of wisdom that I've gained and want to continue to cultivate and share because I see how much this work has helped my life.
And it seems as though your profession, there's an orthodox level to it, there's an unorthodox, but how do you arrive at that? How do you get trained to get to a point where you make sure your clientele understands that this is your gift, this is your gig?
Honestly, it comes down to like owning the fuck out of it
Yep.
through and through, like really just being unshakable in your own knowingness of that because I didn't follow any laid out path, of like I got the bachelor's degree and I did the clinical
Yeah.
hours and now I have this thing that lets me see clients in this office. Like I didn't go that route and I had an interest in that route. A lot of times it was kind of this elliptical, like I'd come to it and then be pushed way far away from it and come to it and then be pushed away. And finally, I got the lesson and I was like, okay, I'm going to stop fighting myself and realize that maybe what I'm here to do in the world is not on a very traditional pathway. Like maybe my work fits into one of those categories, but it's going to come to life in a more unique way. And so that has been kind of the theme of all of my work, just a very trailblazing kind of thing. And with that comes a huge responsibility to own it. Because if you don't, nobody else will believe it, you
Yeah,
know?
right, right. So what's been a common thread with your clients that come to you that need help? What is it that is a common thing that maybe they don't see that you click the flashlight on and they're like, oh, all right, well, I got it now.
Yeah, I see this across the board for men and women, both equally, all ages, that people don't see it until they do. The ways that they are trying to get their internal needs met in another person that actually should be being met from within themselves.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Who's been kind of a hero or kind of a an inspiration for you in your life, whether it's in your work or otherwise?
Honestly, this is such a silly answer, but the writers of South Park,
Nice.
they're just very like they're gonna be who they are, and that is just really, really inspiring to me always.
So I just got back from a trip in Colorado and I saw friends that were like in Castle Rock, right up by Denver. And we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And they said there was some cafe that they bought and resuscitated that was a part of one of the early shows. And it's like a phenomenon
Ah,
now. Like all of the wait staff gets paid really well. They're not based on tips because it's Matt Stone and Trey Parker. They run it. So anyway, I didn't know if you had known about that, but yeah,
uh-uh.
and then we actually drove through and I'm like, hey, there's South Park. And it's like, it was kind of the inspiration behind what they did. So,
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah, so it's good. So I guess maybe you answered my next question, which is if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, spend time with them, who'd it be?
That usually would be my answer.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Writers of South Park. Yeah, let's kick it because I trust them so hardcore that like they are going to be authentic, and that's what
Yeah.
I value more than anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Those dudes are. Yeah. So, what is it that motivates you every day to do the work that you do? What is the ultimate spark that leads you not only through the proverbial day, but in general to get your work done and to do good at it?
Yeah, it's really a deep like devotional feeling to just the knowing that I have that we are all souls, having this experience. This is not who we really are. And it's just something that's temporary and helping people come back to that place in themselves when life gets crazy, when you feel stressed out, when you're worried about your bills, when you're fighting with your kids, like all the shit that happens. It's so easy to be disconnected from that like core truth that this is an experience for your benefit. There's a lot to gain from this. Anything that you experience, good or bad in the moment, there's something to take from it. And just really holding the line of that perspective that like let's live this life as fully as we can because we know that it's a temporary experience and you can't fuck it up,
Right.
really. And so that's my mission. That's what really drives me.
So, based on what you've said about the soul and being kind of in this human vessel, do you believe in that level of like reincarnation where we have to learn where we're at, and then when we go to the next one, there's these things that we have to figure out before we move on?
I do believe in that. And like the more time goes on every day, really, I get more woo woo and less grounded in in
Right.
anything 3D, So it's like, yes, I absolutely believe that. And I'm more and more so letting go of the like linear understanding that it's like this lifetime and then the next one and then the next one, because we created time. So, beyond this time and space, does that even exist? I don't know, parallel realities, parallel timelines, other dimensions where things are happening. I'm open for all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why the Matrix made sense. Um,
Right.
so let me ask you this without putting any names out there, I'm sure, because there's sensitivity that goes into clientele. In general, what's been one of the best success stories that you've been involved with?
Ooh. The first client that comes to mind, he's a man. He's one of my private clients. He's in his late 50s now, and he's been with me for the last 3 years, a little over 3 years. He signed on originally for 4 months and has continued to come back because of the depth of the progress he's experienced in his own transformation. When I tell you this man was a different human being 3 years ago, I couldn't over exaggerate that if I tried. He was undateable, and he says this happily too, so I have the permission to say that from him.
Huh.
He
Uh-huh.
was truly undateable, like the stereotype of like a guy that's like he doesn't get the text back, so then he's like, hey, question mark, did you get my text? Like
Uh-oh.
just the kind of like the lack of awareness of the social anything, just like go bulldoze and then feel a lot of pain and suffering and frustration when you're not getting the connection that you want. And that's really where he was at, like 100%. And now he is literally handpicking the women that he dates and telling a lot of them no because they're not on his level at this point. And
Right.
so the freedom that power has, like the freedom and power that that's given him, it's unbelievably fulfilling to me to watch him be in his power, because before he was begging for scraps, and in a lot of ways, in career, in love, in friendships, and now like that's so far removed from who he is, everything is different.
So he went from Sheldon on Big Bang to Rob Lowe.
Yes.
Very good. So let me ask you this. Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that younger version of
Oh
you a piece
God.
of, based on the experience and the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what would you tell your young version? And would that version listen?
I would tell that version to stop drinking, and that version would not listen.
Okay. They would
Hmm.
go get a drink based on that.
Yeah, yeah. And this very stereotypical, fuck you, I don't have a
Uh-huh.
problem. I'm going to go feed the problem kind of a way. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the one thing that I think we've learned over COVID was that art's pretty important. What was the music or book or paintings, anything early on that really inspired you and has continued to be something you return to in your life?
Yeah. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is the book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I believe he's the same one that wrote The Surrender Experiment, if you've read either of those. But The Untethered Soul, I downloaded that book on Audible like years before I had what I considered my spiritual awakening, which was like mid 2019. So before COVID. But I remember listening to it those years before and being just like triggered by every single thing the book said. It was like there was this reason why I bought it. I was interested, but I couldn't handle it at that time. I wasn't ready for the info. And then when COVID happened, spending a lot of time alone, needing to fill my activities, so I started listening to a lot more books, a lot more walking outdoors and reading. And I ended up listening and then purchasing the paperback both of The Untethered Soul during 2020, and it was really like a homecoming kind of a feeling. It was like, wow, click click click, everything makes sense now of why I was attracted to this book in the first place, why it hasn't come back into my awareness till now. Like it was a very um soul remembrance support kind of a thing. So The
Sure.
Untethered Soul was it.
So let me ask you this. There's a lot of people out there that may be so into their world in a vacuum that they don't know that they need therapy. If you were to tell anybody out there that was listening to this, that was on the line, that wasn't quite sure, what would be some signals or red flags in their lives that would say, you know what, you probably need to address this?
Hmm. If they feel at any point negative, what people would call negative emotions around something that feels completely out of their control. Like if they in any way feel victimized by life, like if you feel like your partner is always doing blah, 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 and that impacts you negatively, and that's now your problem because that's how life is, that kind of mindset, it's very sneaky and slippery and it gets into
Mm-hmm.
all these cracks and crevices of our life. And it is the most disempowering thing I see people having blind spots around. Because when you believe on a core level that anything can really dictate your life experience, it can,
Right.
and that's a power leak.
You know, we've gone through phases of trying to take a mirror and put it on society with movies. Like I remember when Platoon and all the war movies came out, and people that were in the service would say, well, it was either accurate or it's not. We've entered this phase where there's a lot of therapy shows. Like there's, I think on Apple Plus, there's a therapy show with Harrison Ford, and there's been a lot of them. Have you watched any of
Yeah.
these?
I'm trying to think. Not anything recent. I really
Okay.
stopped watching TV about a year ago as like an intentional thing.
Yeah.
So I haven't watched anything recent, but I'm familiar with the concept. Yeah.
I'm just curious if they're getting it, if there's something that's like real good, because it seems good. I've watched them and it seems really good, but I've just been curious from,
You
professionals in
know
the field.
what? There is one example that comes to mind. I watched what is it called? This Is Us. This
Yeah.
Is Us, that's what it's called? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Hulu.
Uh-huh.
Such a good show. Surprising weird ending, but really good show. The black man character, the black son in the movie, when he's an adult, he has a therapist, and I don't remember all the specifics, but I believe he starts with a woman, and like she brings it to his attention at some point that she is kind of exactly his mom, and he is like unconsciously coming to her for that comfort or something.
Yeah.
And that gets highlighted in their sessions, and then that leads him to some like internal breakthrough around wanting to actually claim that he wants to have a male therapist and he wants to have a black therapist. And so that was like a really great example that I think is super accurate to how it actually goes, where like something that feels triggering in a therapy kind of dynamic actually is the doorway to you seeing more of yourself, knowing more of yourself, and owning more of yourself.
Right.
And so I thought that was very, very accurate.
I guess it's a lot like sobriety when you do get rid of something and you have those revelations and realize what it was
Yeah.
clouding over, kind of that thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so everyone out there sees you in a certain light, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but ultimately you're in control. You live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah. So I went to a yoga class last night. My favorite kinds are the ones where you basically lay down the whole time. It's like just kind of super slow old people stretching. Love those
Yeah.
classes. And I get a lot of drop in, download, insight kind of thoughts. So my Instagram bio has been kind of unclear for the last few months. I've been in kind of an identity revolution, and that's basically what it said. And last night the words dropped in like vortex of love and power, and that's what I'm sitting with now. That's what I'm claiming as my self description, because sometimes that is misinterpreted and misunderstood and leads to conflict and blah blah blah, and I can choose to focus on that or not. When I choose to focus on the positive side of it,
Mm-hmm.
that is the consistent feedback I have. Just like this powerhouse of initiation that I bring to
Right.
people that allows them to love themselves and claim their power more and more and more. And so that's my self-description for now.
So let me ask you this. If you could witness any event in human history firsthand, what would you love to have seen happen?
Ooh, I'd want to see Jesus be born.
Wow. That's interesting. I
Uh-huh.
don't know that I'm ever going to get an answer that's that unique and specific. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that would really change things in a big way. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
if anyone wants to hire you, learn more about you, anything pertaining to your world, where's the best place on this big digital door that we have that we can open up?
Yeah, best place is Instagram. That's my home on the internet. So at Hannah Spanke, SPNKP. That's where you can find me on the internet. Hannah Spanke at Gmail if you're not on social and you want to just connect. And then my podcast podcast is called Fuck Yourself Happy. It's a passion project. I record when I want to kind of thing, but that's where you can really deep dive into some of my story and history.
Okay, cool. Hannah, this is great. I appreciate the energy, the story, the passion. Thank you for opening up. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care.